because it was really about, who you knew, who liked you there. And I was like way down on the list of people that were going to move ahead. So it was killing me to be there because the entrepreneur in me wanted to do something else. So when I was in grad school, I met a guy that started working for this company, and they were in charge of, they had a contract with AT&T and MCI at the time, where they were pretty much sending emails to promote cell phone contracts. And some of it was like unsolicited, pretty much spam. They're spamming the internet to get people to get cell phone contracts or to switch to AT&T and MCI. And he was in charge of their email marketing department. So he told me all about it. And I was like, you could really just send emails and people buy stuff. And that just kind of blew my mind. That was 2001. I ended up starting a company where I was just promoting products as an affiliate, but I was building email lists. And back then you can get really cheap traffic online. So that's what I was doing, building email lists and promoting other people's products. And that's how I got started in online marketing.
Man. I've been waiting for this interview for so long, man. I am extremely excited to have you in conversation with me today, Ron Douglas, the one and only Ron Douglas. So thank you so much, man, for gracing me with your presence today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, man. I've been looking forward to that introduction for a long time.
Yeah, man.
You're the best at it, man. I appreciate you having me on.
No, man, I really appreciate it, man. I mean, I really want to I got so much I want to talk to you about because, again, I said the one and only Ron Douglas. And for those who don't know, I mean, you've built a tremendous business. You've built tremendous brands. And you've done some things in the two different categories that I really want to touch on because I know a lot of people want to sell books, right? But I know that you've sold books for real, right? So when we start talking about New York Times bestseller, you've done that. And so I want to talk to you about that. And then this tremendous brand that you've built in the internet and the digital publishing space. But before we get into that, man, you and I was talking before we went live, and sometimes I log into, we're in a mastermind group together online on Facebook, and I log in sometimes just to see what you post or what you comment from somebody else's post, because I think that you are one of the funniest brothers that I've ever encountered in terms of just wit, quick humor. Where did that come from? And I need to know, were you always like that as a little boy, or how did you get this humor, this sense of humor?
I just make it a point to post the most ignorant thing I could think of at all times. And, sometimes it just works out to be funny. I don't know. I'm just, growing up in New York, I guess we used to snap on each other a lot, jokes back and forth. But, there's an art to it without offending somebody, right? There's an art to posting jokes and comments. And I think I'm pretty good at walking that fine line without crossing the line and making people block me and stuff. So it's a challenge sometimes for me just to, I'm on there, might as well have some fun.
Yeah, and it's funny that you said it's a thin line, because that's how I looked at the things that you post. It has this shock value, right? You read something and someone will post something serious, and then I'm scrolling through the comments, and then you'll hit them with something that's like, man, I can't believe Ron said. And then now you see me and Marquel and Tyron, all of us commenting on your joke instead of the initial post, man. So I really appreciate it. And you're right. I've run into some people from New York. But again, it's just something about your blend, because it's so serious, but yet it makes you crack up. I mean, this morning you posted something and I was rolling on the floor and my daughter was like, Dad, what are you doing? I'm like, you just don't know. Ron, it's crazy. So tell me about you growing up in New York, man. Tell me, I mean, who is Ron Douglas? I got your bio here, but I really want you to tell us, who is Ron Douglas?
Growing up in New York, how far back you want to go?
Man, as far as you want to take us, man, because I really want to dive into what makes you Ron Douglas, your journey and how you got to the point and the success that you have now. So as far back as you want to go.
Man, I was a hooper. I just played basketball all the time. I was like an awkward kid that found something I was good at that made me less awkward, and that was basketball. And I kind of got my swag, kind of being good at sports. But I mean, I grew up in a single parent household. My father passed away 6 weeks before I was born. He was 20 years old. So I never met my dad. My parents had gotten married in April of 1974. My father died in August of 1974, and I was born in October of 1974. So my mother was 19 at the time, and she kind of went through a depression. They both were heavy on drugs, to be honest. And she went back on drugs, and my early years were kind of tough. So like basketball was my escape. So from age 6 on, that's all I did was played basketball and later on chase women. Basketball and women, that's all I did.
Wow.
Ended up getting a scholarship to play basketball, went to college, and I wanted to go to the NBA, but I wasn't fast enough or tall enough, or I had these little hands. I could barely palm the ball, but I think I got the most out of it that I could. But I've always also been an entrepreneur as well. And my mother, she struggled. She was a young mother, just lost her husband, and still was struggling with drugs and whatnot. But she cleaned up her act, and there's a lot of good memories from that as well. She instilled in me to be entrepreneurial, like go out there, shovel the snow, make some money, go out, set a lemonade stand up, by the high school, during the sporting event, make some money, go rake the leaves. Everything was just, go get money. So that was all around me, that environment. You think about, I grew up in Hollis, Queens in the 80s, right? So it was like a crack epidemic, and everybody was just hustling, getting money. The cost of living was very high. And you just had everybody I knew either sold drugs or did something entrepreneurial. There was no real thought of I was going to make it in the corporate world. Like that was never really a thought. I mean, I ended up working for JP Morgan and doing pretty well, but it was always like a means to an end until I figured out what I wanted to do entrepreneur wise.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that you didn't think or see yourself working in the corporate world, but yet that end up what happened. I mean, you have a master's in finance, right, and in investment, right? So, I mean, how did you make that transition? Obviously, you mentioned the earlier days. What do you think instilled in you? I know the entrepreneurial drive that you got from your mom, and obviously just that New York hustle, right? That it seems like that was just ingrained in you. But how did you make that transition? You went to college, you're hooping, but then now all of a sudden you start getting into finance and investment. What was the impetus for that?
Well, my first job out of college, I was an assistant manager at Staples, and I hated it. It was just awful. And then I kept in good contact, and I became good friends with my college coach. And come to find out 2 years later, after I graduated and been working for Staples, that his sister worked at JP Morgan Chase. I was like, you couldn't have told me this 2 years ago? Like, Jesus Christ. So she ended up getting me an interview, and they had this program, this training program, and they were looking for people that had customer service experience. And I was like a service manager at Staples. So they brought me in, taught me a lot of things about finance. And I was part of the relationship manager team that was helping mutual funds and pension fund clients settle their trades, reinvest the short-term instruments and things like that. So that's basically how I got into JP Morgan Chase. And while I was there, I was like, well, they have a tuition reimbursement program, and maybe I can go for my MBA, and maybe I'll get a promotion. Let's see how far I can take this. So that's what I did. Went, got my MBA in finance. They paid for it. And then I said, okay, maybe I could be a financial analyst or something. And I went ahead and got my Chartered Financial Analyst, CFA designation. That took 3 years to get. And then I figured out that wasn't really going to lead me anywhere like in the corporate world. It was kind of like a dead end for me, because it was really about, who you knew, who liked you there. And I was like way down on the list of people that were going to move ahead. So it was killing me to be there, because the entrepreneur in me wanted to do something else. So when I was in grad school, I met a guy that started working for this company, and they were in charge of, they had a contract with AT&T and MCI at the time, where they were pretty much sending emails to promote cell phone contracts. And some of it was like unsolicited, pretty much spam. They're spamming the internet to get people to get cell phone contracts or to switch to AT&T and MCI. And he was in charge of their email marketing department. So he told me all about it, and I was like, I was like, you could really just send emails and people buy stuff, and that just kind of blew my mind. That was 2001. I ended up starting a company where I was just promoting products as an affiliate, but I was building email lists. And back then, you can get really cheap traffic online. So that's what I was doing, building email lists and promoting other people's products. And that's how I got started in online marketing.
Man, that's interesting, man. So your life story is almost like Chris Gardner's story, right? The Pursuit of Happiness. I mean, you worked he was in there as an apprentice, but you actually went there and you were working in a lower level and went back and got the requirements or the required education to kind of move up the ladder. Now, of course, he stuck with it, but you said you felt stuck in this space. So because you still love numbers. It's interesting because I know in the groups that we're part of, everybody's always asking you about, the markets and things like that. So you still kind of love the numbers and everything about the market or the financial space?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm big into personal finance. And I just saw it as a thing that you really wanted to learn if you wanted to attain financial freedom, which was really my goal. So I'm huge into all that stuff, especially real estate. I'm a big real estate investor. I wouldn't say big, but that's one of my things that I do other than online marketing.
Right. It's interesting. Now here's the thing. Now you're there and you're frustrated, but actually this is where you got the idea to get in the online space way back in 2001, which was like in internet years. For those who don't know, I mean, that's like eons of time, right? When you start talking, we're talking about, it's still like dial-up. Right, it wasn't no high-speed internet or anything like that.
It was dial-up. Literally, it was dial-up.
Yeah, it was literally dial, because that's about the same time I started cutting my teeth on it. And it was dial-up, and
no Facebook,
there was no YouTube, no Facebook, none of that. So we're old heads in this internet space thing. And you started out as an affiliate. Kind of explain exactly what that means as becoming an affiliate.
Right. So there are a lot of different products out there where they'll pay you a commission for referring sales. So they'll give you what's called an affiliate link, and it's like a unique link. If anyone clicks that link and ends up buying the product, you get a commission. Sometimes it's 30%, 40%, 50%. Sometimes it's all the way up to 75%. Usually digital products like digital courses and things like that, and software, they pay more because there's no cost of delivery. So those could pay, I started out on a network called ClickBank. So I would just go to ClickBank, look for products to promote. And sometimes you can get paid 75% on these products. Then I would just set up a page where people, I would say, say for instance, if they had a video as part of their sales page, I would set up a page saying like, hey, free video shows you how to do XYZ. Just enter your name and email and we'll share it with you for free. They enter their name and email, and I'll redirect them through my affiliate link to that page to watch their sales video. And then if sales are made, then I would get a commission, and then I would have the email as well. So I would be able to follow up via email. So based on what the person signed up for, I would know what they're interested in, and I'll be able to build a list around that. So that's basically how great stuff. Started.
Yeah. You planted to see, I was going to ask you about some of these things, but I'm glad you're talking about it now. So you really, at an early stage in this industry, in this business, you knew the value of an email list. So you captured the email first before you even sent them to the affiliate product. And for those who don't know, that place that Ron just talked about is like the digital, everything digital in terms of products and services that people have are in this. Can you give them that site again?
Yeah, clickbank.com.
Yeah, if you want to go there, I think you can still go there and just join as an affiliate for different programs.
It's also a really good research tool to see what's selling and to get ideas for creating your own product, which is ultimately what I ended up doing later on. But you can go there, look at their marketplace, and they rank the products based on popularity and gravity. Gravity is a score based on how many other affiliates have made money with that product. So you could sort their marketplace by different categories and different success rates of the products and see which ones are selling the best. And then really you could reverse engineer them and look into them and kind of hack them and see, okay, what's making this sell? And it's a really good research tool for that.
Man, that's awesome, man. And here's the interesting thing about that, because I know those who have tuned in, who are watching this, I want to make sure we cover a few points, because yeah, we're going to get to the business that you have today, because all of these things that you're talking about plants the seeds for this phenomenal business that I know that you have, and you're publishing. But I really want to ask you this question. It's 2001, but you really didn't start into your hobby until 2007. So what were those 6 years like in terms of still working in corporate America, but yet hustling on the internet on the side?
It was cool because I was double dipping. I was getting like, two paychecks, and I always had a plan to leave. Like I used to come in, and after a while, like from 2001 to like 2003, I was just kind of doing affiliate marketing, just making some extra money. But in 2003, I started this site called recipesecrets.net, which I later sold. But that was a site featuring copycat restaurant recipes. I kind of stumbled upon that niche doing research online. And I was like, there's a lot of people out here looking for these type of recipes, and that there are a lot of people that have tried it, that post their results online and whatnot. And then I could hire a chef and do some testing myself and put together a bunch of these recipes into a digital cookbook, like an ebook. And then nobody else is doing this on ClickBank. So the light bulb went off, and I put that out there on ClickBank, and then it started making sales. I mean, it was really, really ugly at first. It was like, it was like one of my first products that I ever created. The sales page, I was using Microsoft Front Page, and I was using Microsoft Clip Art as graphics. It was terrible, bro. It was terrible. Like, if you see it, you'll laugh, like literally laugh. But it started making money, right? So if something's so terrible and it's making money, if you like spend some time, focus on it, clean it up, make it look nice, it's going to be a big winner. So that's what happened. I started focusing more, and the more money that it made, the more time I put into it. And I was doing this all while I was working at JP Chase. And I had an assistant that was working for me as I was working for them. So I would, like, during my lunch break, call him, give him stuff to do, or the night before, give him stuff to do. So I was like delegating, calling shots from my desk, from my cubicle at JP Chase. And it got to the point where I was making more from the business than I was from the job. And I got to the point where I was making six figures from the business, and I was making multiple six figures at the time. I was making multiple six figures from the business, and I was making six figures from the job. So I was able to stack up some nice coin during that 6 year period. I used to have this Post-it note in my cubicle, and the Post-it note said February 2008, right? That's all it said. And it was on my cubicle, and people used to ask me about it, and I would be like, oh, that's a date I'm planning something. I used to never tell them, but that was the date I was planning to get the hell out of there.
Right.
No matter what, I was gone. February, I was going to leave. And I would look at that every day, and it was like my motivation. And they ended up laying me off, firing me on July 2007. So they pulled the plug. They did it for me.
They did it a little bit early.
Yeah. And the reason I was saying February 2008 was because bonuses were paid out in February. So I was gonna get my last bonus. You
was gonna milk it. You was gonna get everything that's owed to you, and then you was out of that joint.
Yeah, it was still gonna be a difficult decision.
Right.
I say I was going to do it. I'm not sure if I would have actually done it, because I had a baby. Me and my wife had just got married. We had a newborn. We had another one on the way.
Right.
And I was having a good time double dipping. So I was actually happy that they did it for me instead of me having to make that decision. Now I never looked back, and all type of doors started opening for me. I started that book, that little ebook I was selling on ClickBank. Ended up getting a book deal for it with Simon & Schuster. Ended up getting on a bunch of different TV shows, and my career just kind of took off.
Yeah, I really want to talk about that. I just want to touch on two things before we get to taking that. First, I hope everyone is taking notes or writing down or rewinding, whatever you need to do to really get how he took a hobby, right? So he did the research, but here's a hobby, something that someone may not think could generate income, and he went into the online space and started making income from it. But the thing that you touched on, we used to say the uglier the better. when we were creating the sales pages and graphics, I don't know why it stuck, but everybody said, it's the uglier the better. People can relate to it. Do you remember why we created ugly sales letters and used graphics like that?
I think it was just for people to not focus on the graphics and just to focus on the text and the content and the sales pitch and what it was about. And I wouldn't say ugly or better. I would just say just plain, and just focus on the text. Not many distractions, not anything flashy. I think those were proven. I think Dan Kennedy was like the one.
Yeah.
They kind of told everybody
the ultimate sales letter.
Right.
Yeah. You mentioned something else. I want to make sure that people get this. You didn't just jump out there, because I get asked all the time about, I want to quit my job and start my business. Right? And I have to remind, if that's what you want to do, but I don't highly advise it. What type of advice if someone was coming to you and they got an idea like you had, right? They're researching ClickBank. Would you advise them to quit their job because you kind of transitioned out of your job? Of course, ultimately they end up forcing you out, but looking back, what type of advice would you give? And you probably give this advice all the time now, for people who are still in corporate America or have another business, but they are frustrated and they want to jump out on their own. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on your personal situation, because corporate America at age 21 with no kids and no family, and you can go broke for a while and not have anybody depending on you, is a lot different than, when I left there in 2007, I was, I think 33. I went full time. I had 2 kids, and a wife and a mortgage and a house. So that's a different situation. So if you're 21, with no obligations, do what the hell you want, go for it, like whatever you want to do. But if you have responsibilities and expenses and people that depend on you, you want to have 2 things. You want to have some bank. You want to have money saved up to at least cover at least 6 months of your expenses. But more importantly than that, everyone focuses on that. More importantly than that is you want to have some type of stable way of making money, right? Whether preferably an asset that keeps making money for you. So when I left my job, I had this big email list, and every time I sent an email, I could make thousands of dollars. So it was like, wasn't even really a concern of how I was going to make money, because I had this list of folks that loved hearing from me. I was sharing recipes and cooking tips and all type of stuff. And they would open the emails. And if I didn't send an email for a few days, they would contact me. Hey, am I still on your email list? I didn't get the email. So it's that type of relationship I had with that list. And I was always, in contact with them, sharing my life. So they knew me. So I knew I could always make money from that list. And I knew what they were interested in buying. And ironically, a cooking list, the stuff that sells the best are diet products. So I used to tell people I was the problem and the solution at the same time. So I would give them these recipes, make them fat, and then offer them diet solutions. So you got to have that asset. I mean, there's other types of assets. Like right now, I have a nice real estate portfolio of renters who pay me money, and they have to have a place to live, so they continue to pay money. So I'm confident that will keep coming every month. Other type of assets, like maybe you have a membership site where people are paying for your coaching or your software or something, just something that that next month you don't got to worry about the bills, or 6 months down the line you don't have to worry about the bills, because that's a bad place to be in, to have to not have income, not have a job, and stressed out about how you're gonna pay those bills. You don't want to be in that situation, and to have someone like some people depending on you. Their lifestyle is going to be impacted if you don't make it happen. That's a stressful place I wouldn't want anybody to be in. And unfortunately, people end up in that situation, but it's not something that you want to put yourself in if you can avoid it. So you can make a lot of money on the side as you're still working, and then save up your money and have a plan for it and be smart about it.
Yeah, that's great advice, because running or building a business is more than a notion. And so not having any income and trying to make business decisions, you're talking about wrecking your brain and the pressure, right? See, at least you can experiment with your idea and while you're creating an asset, if you have another source of income coming in. But if you don't have another source of income coming in, this is it. So it's, most times people have that feast or famine mentality. Like, I gotta make this happen. And I've had that. Brother Beverly, you don't understand. I gotta make this happen.
Right.
I'm like, that's too much pressure to
That's
put
a lot
on
of pressure.
yourself.
I tell you, the other thing is you can lean on having a skill. If you have a skill that's in demand, maybe you're a copywriter, maybe you're a video editor, maybe you're really good at webinars. Like, you want to focus on just building a skill that's a money skill that's going to pay the bills for you, right? So that is another thing you can lean on.
All right. So before you quit your job, I just want to make sure that everybody gets that. I think it's critically important. Now, like you said, unfortunately, a lot of people don't have jobs right now, and so you do have to go into this this arena of building or starting a business, kind of rushed for some people. But if you have the opportunity, as Ron pointed to, I would highly recommend that, and beautifully put, Ron, because most people, you're right, they try to build the business, but if you can hustle to create an asset prior to leaving, you always got time to get into the business and perfect it, as we're getting ready to get to, because what Ron did then, he's not doing now, right? So he's built this tremendous business, but he had to get some things in place to kind of give him the platform to really launch some of these things that he's doing now. And I can't wait till we dive into it. And you see, he dropped that word in their webinar. And we really gonna talk about how, Ron is really like the mad scientist of webinars. And so we're gonna talk about that in just 1 second. But now that you're getting ready to make this transition, Ron, this is beautiful, man. You're getting ready to leave the job on your own recognizance, but they beat you to the punch. And it's interesting because that was the time period, America was heading into the Great Recession. So we know a lot of things.
They laid me off 1 month before our son was going to be born.
Wow.
I got laid off right at the start of the Great Recession. So if I didn't have my plan B in place, I would have been like really in a bad situation.
Right. So you didn't, but so think about this. He created this business that literally was running for 6 years. Some of us can't, we can't develop that type of patience to work on creating an asset or something like that for 4, 5, 6 years, really planning the exit so that when it does happen, whether it's by your choice or as Ron just pointed out, or you're forced out, at least you have something already in place. How did you feel when they laid you off? Did you feel angry or were you excited?
No, I felt angry and a little bit confused and trying to think, like, what am I going to do now? Because that paycheck was not coming anymore. I got a little severance, but that was it. And it was funny. My wife made me feel a lot better about it because she was 8 months pregnant. I remember making that phone call. I remember so this is how it happened. I'll tell you the story behind it.
Please.
So I was getting great reviews. Everyone seemed to like me. I was just part of a major project with them that was successful. I got a raise, all that stuff. I didn't see it coming at all. So they called me in. The boss calls me in. It's like, hey, we're going to have a team meeting at 1:00. It was a Monday. Come back after lunch, 1:00, conference room. So I didn't think anything of it. Went to lunch, came back, 12:55. I walk into the conference room. Only person there was my manager and the HR director. I'm like, oh, this ain't no team meeting. I know what this is.
The team done shrunk, right?
Yeah, I know what this is. So, they basically told me, I'm like, what happened? I thought I was doing great. I just got a raise. I got a good review and everything. They were like, well, it's not you. It's us. We're restructuring the department. Sign right here. You get your severance. And there's nothing we could do. We got to restructure the revenue. We're missing our revenue estimates, so we got to cut expenses. So, I didn't realize, like, if you think about it, your salary is just their expense, right? So you think your job is safe, but you're just a number to them, and they can cut that expense at any minute. Like, especially if you're not I wasn't in a sales position. I was in a like a kind of, what do you call it? A non-essential employee.
Right.
Like, I wasn't bringing money. I was kind of just doing finance and reporting and forecasting and stuff like that. So I got back to my desk, and the only thing on my desk was this cardboard box. They took the computer away, and I had this cardboard box. And I literally had to put all my stuff in this cardboard box. And there was a guy there just kind of hovering over me, and he escorted me out the building. You would think I stole something, bro. Like, they escorted me out the building. I was there for years putting in work, and that's how they did me. 10 years.
Man,
10 years.
You think you only see that type of stuff on TV, right? Where they getting ready to fire somebody, then they got, security, escorting them out of the building. You actually experienced it.
It's real. I don't know what they thought I was gonna do. Maybe they thought I was an angry black man. I was gonna like slap somebody or something on my way out, or yoke somebody up. When I walked out of there for the last time, and I remember getting on my phone, it was a BlackBerry at the time. And I called my wife, and I'm like, "You're gonna want to sit down for this. I don't want to upset you and the baby." She's 8 months pregnant.
Right.
She's at home on maternity leave. She was working at JP Morgan Chase also. And I told her, like, man, I didn't see this coming, but I lost my job. They fired me, and sorry, I don't know what we're gonna do. And she's like, "You don't know what we're gonna do? You have your business, isn't it? This is what you wanted, right? February 2008, you were leaving anyway. This is a blessing in disguise." She's like, "Just focus on your business. You're gonna make this work. You're already making money, and I believe in you." Right. And I was like, man, that blew my mind. She told me that. "I believe in you." I was like, "Yeah, you're my wife for a good reason. I'm happy to have you." Yeah. She's very supportive. And I told her, I made a promise to her right then and there. Like, she was like, "Don't worry about it. I'll go back to work after maternity leave. I still have my job. Just focus on your business." So I was like, you know what? This business is going to make so much money that by the time you're 45 years old, I think she was like 30. I think she was 41 at the time. By the time you're 45 years old, you don't have to work anymore. You can come back and stay at home, stay with the kids, whatever you want to do. And that's what happened. And that was one of the biggest honors of my life, to be able to retire my wife at exactly age 45.
That's a blessing.
Started working with me.
That's a blessing, man. And I've met your wife, and I know you can see and sense the support that she has for you, man. So, and kudos to you, brother. That's a wonderful feeling. Now, here's what I want to ask you about this, though, because now you're making this transition and she's supporting you. Were you still nervous? How did you feel? I mean, you knew the business was making money, but now, as you said, now the kickstand is kicked. That kickstand is gone. So how did you feel?
Now it's on. Now it's the real deal.
Right.
I was at first a little bit nervous, but then I really got into it. And I was like, I could build. Like, I had skills, man. I could build money, right? I could build products. I had relationships with people in the industry that, I'll promote them, they'll promote me. I had a network. I was in this industry. So, I could create as much income as I needed to. I could build membership sites. I could build, I was just in the game at that point. And it was a lot easier, the transition, than I thought it would be. What was the most difficult thing about the transition?
What's that?
Being home all the time. Being home. Everybody says they want to, and the pandemic shows a lot of people what it's really like.
Right,
Everybody says that they want to leave their job. I wish I could work from home. Until you're working from home for like 6 months and you're like going crazy looking at the same wall. You just stare, just you and the computer. It's a lonely. It takes some adjusting.
Yeah,
I had to get an office because it was driving me crazy. I'd just be there and at the time it was funny because my wife was still working at the time when I first got laid off, and I was working on my business, and I'd be working, just grinding out, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., just going hard. She would come home about 6:30, and then I would be ready to go. I'm like, let's go somewhere. Let's go out. Let's go get a drink. Let's do something. And she would be like, I'm tired. I just came from work. It's Tuesday. I'm not going anywhere. So we were kind of off. Like, I'd be ready to just go party, do something, anything but stay in that house. And she'd be ready to come lay down, relax, wind down, sit in a chair. I'm ready to go out and do whatever. So it was like an imbalance there. So that was an adjustment period as well. So it was a lot of adjustments going on, but it worked out and I figured it out. And social media actually helped a lot. With just being able to interact. There was no Zoom back then, but now it's a lot easier to talk with people, interact with people. And then one of the good things I did was I went and got one of those Regis shared office spaces where bunch of other businesses are in there and they all share the same receptionists and the same office common area, but you all had your own office. I was in there, and I ended up meeting some good people, some good friends in there. Then, sometimes I work at Starbucks, which was weird because I don't even drink coffee much. So I just be in there kind of squatting in a Starbucks. Sometimes I'll go to the library, which is weird because you can't really talk to anybody. It's like, be quiet. So I'll just be in there, just people watching. Sometimes I would just stop working at 11 a.m. and just go to the mall or something, or just anything to just be around people. So It was an adjustment period at first.
Now, how do you still have the office, or now how do you feel now? Because now we're fast forwarding 10 plus years later now. So now how do you feel now working at home? Because to your point, that's what I used to tell people when the pandemic happened. I said, so now you kind of see what we do, but we're used to it. So this is really our lifestyle. We go out, like you said, to coffee shops. I used to boast at one time when I first started, and I had 10,000 offices, and I was talking about every Starbucks coffee shop, because wherever there was Wi-Fi in a Starbucks, I can just open my computer and go to work. So have you since abandoned the office and all of those things?
Right. When I moved from Long Island to Atlanta, I didn't get another office. I have 3 offices in my house. Like my wife has one on the top floor, there's one on the first floor, and there's another one on in the basement. I'm in my basement office right now. But I mean, it's different because my wife, works with me now. And I just adapted to it. At social media, I can go on there, like you said, and just clown around and laugh and kind of, break up the monotony. I have about 5 minutes from LA Fitness. Right. I can just go walk right to the gym down the street. So I haven't gotten an office yet in Atlanta. I don't know if I will. I may or may not, depending. I mean, I've never really been like the big, because I came from an environment where I was a manager and I had people, reporting to me, and I had this big office environment at JP Morgan Chase. And I never really wanted to do that. I always wanted to have a lifestyle business. I always wanted to just get up and go. I had an office in Long Island. I started out with the Regis office space, and then I ended up getting my own separate office, which is next door to a friend. It was like had a storefront and everything. It was right next door to my friend. He had an office there. He had a business or he still has a business that picks up dog crap. Literally. His slogan is, "We take a lot of crap from our customers." That's his business. And so he has all these trucks, and he has people he calls scoopers, and they go, and he has like 40. He has like, literally, in Long Island, he has over 1,000 houses that pay him to do that. So he has a whole army of people with trucks that go out and just scoop poop like 2-3 times a week from people's houses. So if you think about it, that's a job that nobody wants, but he made a fortune out of it. He calls himself the king of poop. Right? It's hilarious. His name is Jim. So I became good friends with him because our daughters went to the same school, and he was telling me like, hey, the guy next door to me, he was a tailor. He's a tailor. He's moving out. If you're looking for an office space, you can have that office, because mainly his thing was he needed the parking for his trucks. Right. So he needed someone like me that didn't require people coming in and out all the time to have that office space, so he could have the parking lot to himself. And I was paying like $700 a month. It was like a real sweetheart deal. Utilities included, everything. So I just took that, and I had my own little office space. And not sure where I was going with that.
No, it's good. We were talking about the advantages or disadvantages of having an office or anything like that, and you pretty much lost that desire to do that now. And that's interesting. So one thing I want to make sure that we highlight: if you can make money, build a business around picking up dog stuff, you can make money doing anything. So I mean,
business is called,
about destroying the impossible. I think he did it. He destroyed the impossible.
It's called Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo, instead of Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo.
That's crazy. That's pretty good.
He built it up really from Google AdWords. So people looking for a pooper scooper, like he were in Long Island, and he built up his business using Google AdWords. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So I was saying, So I moved to Atlanta, and I didn't get another office, and I just I'm a lifestyle guy, right? So sometimes. So here's the story I want to tell you. So when I was in that office, I had hired 2 people. Mm-hmm. And one of them was this lady. She was like going to be a writer for me, do content marketing and stuff like that. And I ended up, one person left, and the other one, the writer, ended up firing her after 3 weeks because one day I strolled in at like 11:15 a.m. and she questioned me as to like, where were you? Like I was supposed to be there at 9 or something. Like, where were you? And I was like, I just fired her. But she was a crap writer anyway.
Did she
She
forget
had
who the
like
boss
submitted a
was?
writing. What did you say?
Did she forget who the boss was?
I guess. I don't know. I'm like, I never liked you that much anyway. Like, don't you ever question? Because I was just like, this ain't gonna work out. She was she had submitted a writing sample because I asked for a writing sample before she got hired.
Right.
And the writing sample was nowhere near the writer that she was. She was a terrible writer. And I'm like, I hired you to be a writer. So I was willing to work with her to try to help her improve. But that was like the last straw. And I told her, like, listen, this ain't gonna work. If you can get your job back that you left,
right,
please do that. I want you to be employed. Get your job back. She was able to get her job back, and it wasn't gonna work out. So all my staff is virtual. I don't like going into an office being responsible for a team of people that need you to be there and all that stuff. I just want to delegate to people that got skills and can do stuff online and work virtually.
Yeah, that's great stuff. So, I mean, we've been dancing around. Let's go ahead and dive into this business, man. These, I want to touch on these two phases real quick. Obviously that book, the ebook at one time that you were selling on online, ClickBank, but now all of a sudden you got a book deal, right? I mean, how did you get a book deal from a book on ClickBank, and then not to just get the book deal, go on to sell 1.5 million books? I mean, we know a lot of people who talk about becoming best-selling authors, and a lot of them are, you can become a best-selling author on Amazon pretty easy, right? But literally you sold 1.5 million books. So how do you go from this digital book on ClickBank to now having a real book and becoming a New York Times bestseller?
Right. I just kind of met the right people, to be honest with you. Going to events, going to networking events. I was active on this place called the Warrior Forum at the time. I don't know if you heard of that. Mm-hmm. It was like an internet marketing forum, and we would have these like networking events with people that were on the forum that would meet up in person to kind of put a name to a face and meet in person. And I met a guy, I met Mike Filsame, was one of my early kind of mentors. He was like a local Long Island guy, and his partner, Tom Beal, was the guy that kind of told me, like, I told him my story about what I was doing with the restaurant recipes. And he had been working with Jim Kelly, former football player at the time, and helping him get publicity. And he said, hey, and that, that's a great story. You can get on the news for that. You can get publicity for that. So he kind of opened my mind to the possibility that maybe this was bigger than a little cookbook I was selling online. And doors kind of opened, and I met Mike Filsame's publicist, who I ended up hiring to be my publicist. And the publicist, he actually had a friend who was a literary agent. So they put together a book proposal, put it out there. And at the time I had like 150,000 email subscribers. I was like known as I was calling myself the king of copycat recipes. And I'm not a chef or anything, bro. Like, it was just like, I was just a marketer, and I was just putting myself out there.
Well, let's stop right there real quick. How did you, so the recipe, you're not a chef. So this is literally, I mean, this was really just a hobby and an aha moment that you had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And as I mentioned, a lot of them were already out there on the internet, but nobody was kind of compiling them. And like recipes, there's no copyright on recipes, right? So you could take a recipe and switch up some of the ingredients, put the description, put the instructions in your own words, and that's your recipe now. Wow. So that's basically what I did. It's probably, I mean, I've done 6 cookbooks, right? And 6 with Simon & Schuster, 3 self-published. And I would say maybe 10% of the recipes were recipes I actually tried myself in the kitchen, to try to master. And usually those were the ones that I was going on TV to. So we're getting ahead of ourselves. So basically, that's what happened. I ended up getting a book deal with Simon & Schuster, $100,000 advance to do 2 books. So the book was called America's Most Wanted Recipes, and the second book was even more of America's Most Wanted Recipes. And did that, and the publicist was able to kind of leverage that book deal and everything to get me on television. He had a friend that worked at, his girlfriend actually worked at the New York Post, right? So the New York Post, and it was crazy. It's like all of these like pro-conservative media publications were really the people that broke my story, right? So the New York Post was the first to kind of run the story of a local Long Island man leaves his job to pursue his passion of cooking, ends up cracking the code on KFC's secret recipe. So I had a copycat version of the KFC recipe. So the New York Post sent a reporter to my house. We made the chicken for him, and he reported back to them that it was the best KFC he'd ever tasted.
Wow.
And then that just kind of broke the story, and the media loved that story. Like I had cracked the code on KFC, and I started getting on all these different TV shows. So like I was, help being in New York as well, because the local media,
right,
they look for the local papers to kind of break stories, and they're like, oh, look at that in the paper. Let's have this guy on the show. So
right.
before you know it, I was on Good Day New York. I was on Fox and Friends. I was on Wendy Williams, Cooking with Wendy Williams. You can see all this on my website on rondouglas.com in the media section. Good Morning America, Home Shopping Network. I was on there 5 times. It was just a crazy, crazy run of publicity. It got to the point where I was like turning down interviews, and they would tell you got to do this interview. So I remember leaving Fox and Friends one time, and they had a black car waiting for me. I got in a black car with the publicist, and he puts me on the phone. And I'm like, I don't want to do any interviews, man. I'm tired, bro. Can we just go home? He's like, no, you got to do this interview. So I started doing the interview over the phone. And it turns out that was the Today Show being published on MSN, on MSN.com. So they ran that story with a link back to my homepage, recipesecrets.net. I sold that site, so don't go there, but a link back to the homepage. So I ended up getting so much traffic. It was like a WordPress site. Ended up getting so much traffic from that live link on MSN back to the site that it crashed the server. It shut down the site. So I had to go in. I had to have the tech team go in and take all the blogs and everything down. And only thing I put up was one page that had just a squeeze page. Just enter your name and email, and we'll send you sample recipes. And I ended up getting close to 40,000 opt-ins from that over the next probably 2.5 days when that article was still on the homepage of MSN. So it was crazy stuff like that happening. It was just like a good 18 months where I was just all over the media. Simon & Schuster wanted to do more books. They're like, well, this is working. They wanted to sign me up to another book deal, another $200,000 advance, and then another to do 2 more. So I ended up getting $500,000 in advances from Simon & Schuster to do 6 books, and ended up selling over 1.5 million books. The first book alone sold over 800,000 copies.
Wow.
And made me a New York Times bestseller like the first month it was released. I was on there 6 weeks in a row on the New York Times bestseller list.
Wow. Man, that's a hell of a story. And here's the thing, similar to, obviously I've come nowhere near those numbers with conversations with Black millionaires, but I would always boast to people that I didn't write one word, right? It was just my interviews of successful Black millionaires. And here it is. You took recipes that some of them, or the majority of them, that you didn't even write, and you became this New York Times best-selling author. It's a hell of a story.
Just kind of found an angle that worked and just ran with it. It's crazy. My wife always tells me, and my wife's a better cook than I am, right?
Right.
She always tells me, I don't want to sound chauvinist. It's just like a fact, right? So she always tells me, like, I can't believe that you went on all those shows cooking. You're on Live with Wendy Williams. You're on the Home Shopping Network. You're on NBC cooking. Like,
and you can't cook.
When you gonna cook something? I'm like, I always tease her. I'm like, listen, I only cook when the cameras are on. Okay. I'm a world-class chef. Like, just Google me. All right. Don't hate.
That's good, man. That is hilarious.
But I ended up taking cooking classes and stuff like that. I mean, I could cook like, soul food dishes, like certain things that my grandmother taught me, like stuff like that. And I was cooking, like when I was in college, I cooked for myself, but I ended up taking cooking classes just so I wouldn't embarrass myself when I went on television. And that's the extent of my cooking expertise.
Man, that's a hell of a story, Ron. I mean, I've known it, but just to hear you tell it, man, it's just it's phenomenal. So again, I mean, you've dropped so many nuggets so far, and we're not done yet, man. I got a couple more things. You said I can take a little liberty with your time, so I definitely want to make sure that we extract as much as we can. Um, Even before we get to the webinars, because that's currently what you're doing. And I mean, again, you have this thing nailed down to a science. But you mentioned something here, uh, the relationships. How important was it for you to build these relationships that you built in the online space and learn how to do those joint ventures and collaborations?
Yeah, it was. I've made a lot of money on joint ventures and collaborations, probably more than anything else. I mean, I've made more money online, selling what I know than I did from the book deals and everything else I did. And people wanted to know, like after I'd done all that stuff, it's like became low hanging fruit to sell products related to what I did. Like people wanted to know, how'd you get on TV? How did you build a big audience? How did you find a niche and all this stuff? Like how did you publish a book? So I've done products related to all that stuff over the years. But webinars became my thing. I found out that I was really good at webinars. Just had a knack for it. My very first webinar I ever produced in 2010 ended up making good money, from the start. So I've always kind of just had a knack for webinars. I don't know what it is. It's kind of found my thing. And I ended up starting this event called Webinar Con, which became the place that people looking for deals related to, like, I promote your webinar, you promote my webinar, that type of thing. It became a huge mastermind deal making event with some of the top webinar names in the industry. Came by, people making 8 figures, people making stupid amounts of money. People that one guy, he did like $25 million on one webinar. Like he owns a subsidiary of Agora called Legacy Research, I believe it is. And, he was one of the keynotes, and he became a friend of mine. I just had lunch with him, bought him lunch one day, and then we became friends, and he became a keynote. So that event was cool because I got all these webinar players in one place, and I made a lot of money off the event, but I made even more because of all the deals that I made with all these people, right? So I have a webinar that converts. I bring them all to my place, and then I get them all to promote my webinar. It was like a no-brainer. So that worked out. So I mean, JVs and collaborations are probably the easiest way to earn money online. You have a product, you have a customer list, you have an email list, someone else has a similar product. You're selling peanut butter, they're selling jelly. You promote them, they promote you. It's easy. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can make money online. And you can go get a bunch of traffic from Facebook, and you're probably going to break even on the front end, and hopefully you make money on your upsells and your back end products, and you can build a real sizable list, and it's scalable. But the much easier way is just, get to know people and make deals and say, listen, hey, approach people. Like people do this to me all the time, and I'm a sucker for it, right? They'll come to me and be like, hey, loved your webinar. Can I promote it for you? Like, what I'm going to say? No? Like, sure. Sure. You got an audience? How many people you can get on? Yeah, I'll promote it and get a couple hundred people on. We'll do it. Then they promote it. We make money. And then they're like, hey, by the way, I have a webinar. Would you like to promote my webinar? Right. It made me money. What I'm going to say? No, like sure. So that's how a lot of deals get made. Being able to create a win-win offer, being able to approach people from a position of power where you can offer them something first, and then in return, they reciprocate, is like the position you really want to be in.
This is good stuff, man. I mean, you're really giving some nuggets here, man, that I know people hear them, but to kind of hear the way that you're kind of walking through it, because I said to myself, I said, this year moving forward, I will be focusing more on collaborations and joint ventures. And for some strange reason, we always default back into, doing it yourself. But kind of once you break out of that mode and realize just what you just touched on, that there's better opportunity, it's easier, it's more fun, it's more lucrative to do these joint ventures and strategic alliances or collaborations. I definitely think that's the move towards the future. Man, the webinar. I got to ask you, what is the science of a good webinar? Can you give us, I know we've said it 4 to 5 times, but I want the audience to say, man, can I take something that Ron says about the webinar? Because a lot of people are doing it, but what would you say are those steps or keys for a good, successful webinar?
Right. I would say it's just really, really knowing your audience and knowing your customer and knowing what their problems are, what their fears are, what keeps them up at night, what their goals are, what they really want to accomplish, and know like what they've tried to do and failed, tried to do and succeeded. Just know everything you can about that audience, and you'll be able to craft an offer that's just irresistible to them. It just kind of stands out. And there's a lot of different webinar tactics, but I would say it comes down to 3 things, and I like to call it the AIM, AIM method, right? So everyone that has a good webinar has good AIM, right? So AIM, the A, first thing is authority, right? So especially if you're selling, information products, coaching, or even if you're selling any type of product, does your brand have authority? Are you able to show proof, results? Are you able to command attention? Are you able to get people on that webinar and show them like why you're the best at what you do or why they should buy from you? You have to have some type of authority. And to get there, there's many ways you could, publish a book on the topic related that your audience, that your webinar is about, that your audience wants to know. You could have a show like you're doing, interview people where, people are seeing you, you're visible, your name is out there, and you're like sharing the virtual stage with all these different accomplished people. There's many ways to gain authority. I mean, having a product alone gives you some type of authority. Having success stories gives you some type of authority. So that is what people want to buy from people. They want to follow an expert who can help them, right? Because you can go on YouTube and learn practically everything you want to know, right? But how do you know if you're being pointed in the right direction? How do you know if it's complete? How do you know if you've found out the best way to do things, right? You only see what's out there on YouTube. But by purchasing products from an expert, people feel like, okay, this has got to work because this expert is the best at what he does, or he's really good at what he does. You don't even have to be the best, just really good enough to command that authority, and people will want to buy from you. The I stands for indoctrination, right? So when they come in, you got to indoctrinate them to the point where they know, like, and trust you, right? So you tell stories, you tell about a time where you were in their shoes, you relate to your audience, you relate to the people listening to you, and they could relate to what you're saying. They could see themselves like, okay, I was in the same position as he was, but here's how he did it. Here's how he went from, struggling to having a breakthrough to, here's what he tried. Here's the breakthrough. Here's the success story. And they see your path and they're like, okay, I can go on that same path. And there's other things to get people to know, like, and trust you. You share parts of your life. Like I show in my webinar, I'll show baby pictures. I'll tell a story about like how I first got started. And I have this picture with my daughter, with our daughter. She was like a newborn and I'm holding her and I'm in this like office with this old refurbished computer. And I'm telling this story about how she was my motivation and how, she was, I just wanted to be there and spend more time with her. So I started working really hard on this old refurbished computer that I bought for $200. And that was really the start of my career. So that kind of, is endearing. People see that and like, you weren't always this big success. This is how you started out, and it's inspiring. So that's kind of a way to indoctrinate that audience, to let them get to know, like, and trust you. And then the M stands for monetization. Monetization in terms of, are you making a good offer? Are you asking for the sale? Are you transitioning to why your product is the solution to their problem? So you're establishing the opportunity. You're establishing why what problem they have. You're relating to their problem. That's part of the indoctrination, is relating to the problem that they have. And then the M is like offering your product as the solution to that product and calling for the sale, closing the sale, and being consistent, following up on that sale, making offers. And then even if they don't buy that offer, you still have that email list where you're making consistent offers out there and focusing on monetization. And, when you can help people and really help people and your product is a solution for people, you owe it to them to be aggressive with how you promote it, right? Because if they buy it, it helps them. So you want to position your product in the best possible light as possible. You want to put it out there as, here's why you should buy it. And here's a great deal, great opportunity for you to buy it, and you don't want to miss out. And a webinar is really cool because it's a captive environment, right? Mm-hmm. It's the next best thing to having people in a room with you on stage. It's a captive virtual room where you could literally paint the picture like, listen, I'm making you guys a special offer, but you gotta take action before the end of this presentation. So it's like you calling people, if you're serious, buy it now, or else the price is going to be higher, or buy it now because I can only take X number of people for this offer. So you create an environment where they feel like, okay, this is a great deal. I don't want to miss out, and I want to buy it right then and there before the webinar ends. So there's no other platform that enables you to shorten the sales process like a webinar, right? I mean, when you think of the sales process, you think of prospecting, and you think of getting leads, and you think of following up, and it's like usually a multi-day, sometimes multi-week process. The webinar shortens that to like 60 minutes, 90 minutes, or however long the webinar is, where people have to kind of just make a decision right then and there, and it gets you to get them to, know your product, know you, know your authority, and know why they should buy it right then and make a decision. So it's kind of like a like a timeshare presentation. You ever been on a timeshare presentation where they bring you in? Those are some of the best. I mean, they'll make you want to buy a timeshare. You can't even afford it, right? But I mean, I don't say you want to do something sleazy and put people in a pressurized position to buy something that they don't need, right? You're selling stuff that they need, right? But you could take a lot from that timeshare presentation, how they come in, you give them. So it starts with kind of like reciprocity, right? They're getting that free weekend vacation. So when people come into your webinar, I like to give people something. Here's a free report. Here's some really good free information. Like, even if you don't buy anything, this can help you, right? The same type of environment of reciprocity that a timeshare, you're in their timeshare, getting a free weekend or whatever. You were referred by your friend who, hey, you can go there, have a weekend, and they get a commission, right? If you buy. So they refer you, hey, use my timeshare for the weekend, and you have to go through this presentation. So you start out in a position where, dang, I'm here for free. I'm obligated to listen to what this guy has to say. And then he paints the picture of how this is such a, if you like it here, such a great opportunity, you need to buy this before the end of this conversation. Right. So you get people to spend. My brother bought a timeshare one time. He was I think he was in his early 20s. And he hits me up like, hey, I'm a homeowner. I'm like, you're a homeowner? What about the freaking $500 you borrowed from me? Like, how are you a homeowner? He's like, yeah, I bought a timeshare. You bought a timeshare. You better get your money back. You can't afford a timeshare. So it's like, very, very convincing. So you can learn a lot from how they close people. And they don't take no for an answer. I've had some really aggressive ones too. Man, but,
it's like they grab you by the collar.
Right. But they're selling stuff that people don't necessarily need. As I mentioned, you should be selling stuff that people should buy and can actually genuinely help people. So you shouldn't be afraid to be aggressive.
Man, this is good stuff. Now it's interesting. Let me ask you this. First, you posted something, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks ago, where because in our industry, there's always somebody, a new guru that's coming up saying, email is dead or VSL is dead, and you would hear this thing, webinars are dead. And I saw, and I laughed so hard when you posted, what is a summit? How did you phrase it? A summit is an elongated webinar. How did you phrase it?
A summit is just a long webinar split over multiple days.
Right.
Think about it.
There was a couple other examples that you gave as well.
Yeah, a challenge. A challenge is just a long webinar with a goal and homework. It's really all it is, right? If you think about it, it's the same platform. You're using Zoom or you're using some type of live streaming captive platform, GoToWebinar, whatever it is, and you're just splitting it up and bringing people into this challenge with a goal. But it's the same thing. Like, people say webinars are dead, don't really understand what a webinar really is, right? A webinar is just a platform. It's just a way of having a captive audience, right? That's all it is. It's not like the concept of a webinar. It can never die. It's just like if you're not getting people on, doing it wrong. You just have to adapt. You just have to give people something they're excited about to get them on, but, there's a lot of people that are jaded and won't watch a webinar, but those same people will watch a webinar replay. Like, right. So it's like the concept of the sales process that goes into a webinar is based on consumer psychology, and it's based on direct marketing principles, and it's based on things that just never will go away. It's just, you just don't call it a webinar. If you think webinars are dead, call it a masterclass, call it a workshop, call it something else.
Which is what a lot of us are doing anyway, right? You just kind of find the language that fits your niche or your industry, and you run with it. Now, do you have to be good your first time out to do a webinar? I mean, do you have to be this articulate person to do a webinar?
It's funny. A buddy, Ty Cohen, has one of the most successful webinars out there. He's probably done tens of millions of dollars with this webinar. And I was one of the first people to actually promote that webinar. I think it was our buddy Greg Caesar, and then it was me back in 2011, I believe.
Right.
And he had some things in his webinar. Like, he has this thing where he can't say the word Larry. He says it Lowy, like Lowy. Like, listen to him. I hope he's not listening to this, but it's freaking
He will listen to it.
He had this testimonial in there where I think it's from a guy named Larry. Yeah. Or he'll have some part of his webinar where he's like, Larry says, and he says it like that. But this brother's the most brilliant webinar guy, one of the most brilliant webinar guys I know.
Right.
Made a killing off of it. But he always said to me two things that I never forget. Like, we were doing these webinars together, and he was one of the first people I saw that wanted to charge $9.97 on his webinar offer. Back then, we were doing webinars for $97, offers for $97, $197, $200. 500 was like a stretch. Like, whoa, you're charging $500. He came in very first, right off the bat, $1,000 offer.
Right.
We were like, dude, you're crazy. Nobody's gonna buy that. And then, like, he'll do it. First webinar, a couple people bought. Next webinar, 3-4 people bought. And then he just became really good at that presentation and that offer. And now he does webinars, makes 6 figures on one webinar. And he used to say to me, the reason that you guys can't charge $9.97 is because you don't believe your product is worth that. So when you get to the close, you got to believe it, and people can sense whether you believe it. And if you really believe it, you'll come across as confident, and they'll believe it's actually worth that, and they'll buy it. And I was like, oh, that's some hokey stuff. But it turned out to be true later on when I started charging that amount. And it makes a lot of sense because your energy, people can feel your vibe when you get to that offer and when you're pitching it. And the other thing he said to me is he had certain things in his webinar. He had typos. He had different things where he said words wrong or whatnot. And he said he never took it out. He left it there purposely so that people can see him as like, okay, if he can do it, I can do it too. So he believed that it made him more relatable.
Right.
Right. So you don't have to have a perfect webinar. Really, you just want to have a good offer, right? A good offer that could genuinely help people, right? And then position it in such a way as, here's why you need to buy it now. That's really the main thing. The rest of it is, I've seen webinars that use, certain webinar formulas, and I've seen webinars that don't follow any structure and still make a bunch of sales and make even more than the webinar that had that perfect structure. So, if you use structure to kind of, there's certain templates and outlines, and you use that as kind of like a crutch. Like, if you're not confident that your webinar is going to be something spectacular, then you use these templates to kind of structure how you do things and when you say things and certain things like that. But it's just a matter of having the same stuff I've been talking about: authority, indoctrination. Do they know, like, and trust you? Monetization. Are you making a good offer, and are you asking for the sale? If you do that, you're probably half the battle. I mean, it's probably 80% of what it is. The rest is just tweaking and trying different things. The strange thing about webinars is, especially like a platform like GoToWebinar, you don't see the audience. You don't see their facial expressions. You don't see their body language. And you can't hear them. Usually they're not talking back other than in the comments. But as you do your webinar more and more times, you can feel them, right? You can feel their vibe. You could feel like how they are responding to certain things you said, how that impacted them. It's a strange thing. And maybe I'm crazy or something, but I can
now you done
tell.
bought into the woo-woo, huh?
Yeah, absolutely, because
Right.
it's a thing. Like, I can tell how the audience is feeling based on what I said and how I said it. And I'm like listening to myself say it after I said it. And I'm like, okay, because I'm also so connected with that audience in terms of knowing what pushes their buttons, knowing what they know, like, and trust, knowing what they believe and what they think. That after I say it, I'm like, oh damn, I shouldn't have said that, or and you get to a point where you just know what to say at the right time, and it comes with practicing that presentation over and over again.
Yeah, and I was just getting ready to say that one of the things that Ty told me was about, he did that initially, would do that same webinar every week, right? So every week there's a webinar. And I know you've made probably not you presenting all the time, but there's webinars going on in your world every week. So how important is it to practice and the consistency? And then we can wrap this up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's everything. It's like if you do a webinar, you don't get much sales, don't be discouraged. It's not a failure. It's just a learning opportunity. Go back and listen to it and figure out what was it about that webinar. And then ask somebody that's also, like, maybe ask the person that hosted it, maybe ask someone that's on there, get feedback from them. Like, one of the things you can do is give people a survey after the webinar and kind of get the feel for what they thought about it. And, and you could look at stats too to show at this point, during the webinar, people dropped off. You can see when they drop off. You can see when they're most attentive. So there's stats behind it to show you as well. So the more times you do it, the more refined that process becomes, and your sales process ultimately ends up being. So you definitely, if you have a good offer, stick with it and keep doing that presentation. And before you know it, you'll have one that's just a killer. And just having a webinar, man, having one that converts is a huge blessing. It's like money just comes to you, just from that presentation. Even if it's just a recorded presentation, it's just like the easiest way. You could always just send traffic to that presentation and make money. It's just like having an ATM. Like, I want to make money, I just send more people to watch this presentation. And it's just like, I can't think of an easier way to do it. It takes some time to get there, but once you have it, it's like the license to print money.
This is great, man. This is great stuff, man. And you teach people how to do this now, right? So now we've kind of gone through the entire journey of Ron Douglas, where he started, thought he was going to go pro. So did I. Once the Pistons drafted Isaiah Thomas, I was done. I knew I couldn't, that was my dream, to be the point guard of the Detroit Pistons. So I understand. So we went from you wanting to be in the NBA, working on Wall Street, writing a cookbook, being on Fox News of all places, or Fox Channel, right, to sell cookbooks, and now back to teaching and training people how to do exactly what you just explained to us as it relates to webinars. So how can people get in contact with you to learn how to do what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach me on rondouglas.com, rondouglas1s.com, and on social media as well. And I'd be happy to talk with you.
Man, this is great. So any closing remarks you have? I want you to just think about the budding entrepreneur, the new entrepreneur that's just starting, and the seasoned entrepreneur. Or as I like to ask the question, we're in this period, this pandemic, where people have to reinvent themselves. So what advice would you give those two groups of people? And then sometimes they can be the same person, right? They're reinventing themselves and they're becoming a new entrepreneur. What parting words of advice would you give to them?
I would just say that all the stuff that we're talking about here is very real. And don't look at me as like the exception, because I am by no means the most successful person in our industry. There's thousands and tens of thousands of people doing this. And it's really the trend of the future. Like the online education business, which is part of what we've been talking about, is going to be a $1 billion a day. I think it was something like $378 billion a year is projected to be in just a few short years. So, I mean, it's there. People want to learn from an expert, and it's just a matter of getting in the game and follow somebody that's doing it. Follow the people that are doing what you're doing that, what you want to do. doing what you want to accomplish. People like, bro, don't be afraid to go out, get coaching, get a mentor, follow those people, buy their products, and learn everything that they're doing because they're ahead of you and they've already kind of paved that road and shown you the model that works. So it's absolutely doable. Anybody can do it. You just have to believe that it's real, and you just have to get so engrossed in it that you're just all about it. You're learning your market. You're getting coaches. You're getting mentors. You really want to make it happen. And if you do that, I guarantee you'll reach financial freedom, and it'll happen for you as well.
Man, this has been great, man. I really appreciate you taking the time out. We definitely got to do this again, right? I mean, because I could talk to you. I mean, we're just scratching the surface. I mean, I could probably talk to you for about 3 more hours, but that would mean that this would be about a 4-hour video or presentation. We don't want to do that. So again, thank you so much, Ron, for taking time out of your busy schedule to impart these words of wisdom to us today. I really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, so a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks a lot. Talk soon, dear brother. Take care.